Hello and welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is American Ben. Now that the third phase of the MCU is coming to a close, it's time to look back and think about what we've learned from the stories. From the cast of heroes, each of them so likable. Yes, as I've said,
I actually really like Captain Marvel. That's some good soy milk.
So with the completion of the Endgame, we ask, is there anything substantial to take away? Anything that's behind the shield? Anything that penetrates deeper than ego's seed? Well, the answer is that there is no crazy, complex metaphor, no esoteric codes. There's just a simple philosophy that guides the whole reality that the MCU and really Marvel Comics has always existed in. Now before I continue, I just want to remind you, as always, if you enjoy the video, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. So to begin, let's think back to the beginning of Endgame when Captain America is leading a support group for those who survived the decimation. After a few members share their stories of grief and struggle, Steve Rogers attempts to motivate them to carry on, and he says something along the lines of, quote, "The world is in our hands. It's left to us, and we have to do something with it." And that's really it. That's the crux of the Marvel story. It's simple, but it's entirely meaningful. From the first MCU film, Iron Man, we see evidence of this philosophy at work. Tony Stark was a man of little moral fiber. Just as the world is given to us, so are obstacles, and Tony is faced with a life-altering one. He's captured by terrorists using Stark-made weapons. This critical event in Tony's life isn't meant as the product of divine will that commands Tony become a hero. It's the product of the evil that humans themselves have created in the world that was bequeathed to them. And with this obstacle, Tony has a choice, and he makes the decision to change his ways and find the courage to build the Mark I armor and 50 others after that and fight back. There is a general sense in the MCU that there is no greater force that will come to save the Earth or the larger galaxy if need be. If the Avengers lose, they lose. Their enemies win and take over. The message isn't that there is or isn't a protective God, simply that if there is a God, it isn't going to help. The world is left to us. It's our choice what to do with it. As a matter of fact, the Avengers themselves are not gods. Now, before you all yell at me that Thor is the god of thunder and handsomeness, yes, I am aware. But he doesn't have omnipotent godlike powers capable of manipulating the universe. He gets hurt just like the other Avengers. He can lose, he can be scared, as we see in Endgame. And no matter how powerful any of the Avengers get, it always still seems to come down to Iron Man's ability to innovate, a mere human. The closest we even get to godlike beings in the MCU are entities diametrically opposed to the Avengers. Dormammu in Doctor Strange or Ego in Guardians of the Galaxy. And both of these forces are still entirely defeatable. Not omnipotent. No, the meek have inherited the Earth, and for the most part, the larger galaxy, and must protect it from forces beyond imagination. The heroes in the MCU must go into battle of their own volition, and there's no guarantee they'll come out on the other side if they choose to do so. Steve Rogers chooses the ice over happiness. He didn't have to do that. That was a choice. He never had to go hunting Nazis. But he recognized one has to make a choice about what to do with the world, what kind of world they want to live in, and it can go either way. Cap always wanted to dance with Peggy forever, but he didn't believe that a world ruled by Hydra is a just one. So he fought. Life is beautiful, but it's also often brutal. Another theme in the MCU. There's not always a perfect ending, and we don't always end up with the one we want. Now, it might seem that I am arguing that the people behind these films are nihilist in suggesting that if there is nothing that is meant to be, if there is no divine protector behind the good in the universe, then there is no purpose, no meaning. And why not just let the galaxy fall to whoever will take it? But this is actually the opposite of what is true. There is meaning specifically because there is a choice with no guarantees, no preordained victor. The world is left to us, and we have to decide what to do with it. Define what is good and moral, define what our purpose is, and chase it. And if we don't chase, it won't come to us. This is not just the message that the MCU leaves for us, but the message that has always defined Stan Lee and Marvel Comics. There's a reason characters from Tony Stark to Scott Lang to Peter Quill don't exactly start out their stories as the most unequivocally good people. They struggle to figure out what to do with their existence, with their worlds, before they ever come close to getting it right, if they ever really do. Heroes are never perfect. They can sometimes even be people who have done a great many things wrong, before rising to the occasion amidst dire circumstances. It's never too late to be a hero in the MCU. This is why in Endgame, Black Widow tells Hawkeye, quote, "I don't judge people by their worst mistakes." The MCU is all about growth and progress as a theme. The villains themselves are simply a means by which the characters evolve into better versions of themselves. And the reason that the Avengers end up as the superheroes they become in the first place isn't so much the product of being chosen hands of a divine creator. One might like to think that Steve Rogers was just some average Joe who lucked out and ended up getting his powers from a super soldier serum. But think again, he was never just an average Joe. Despite a diminutive frame, he had a larger-than-life heart. And he repeatedly tried to join the fight against Nazism in Europe. He tried so desperately that eventually he was discovered by the right person. He didn't just luck into his super strength, he found it by being actively engaged in trying to affect the world around him. Peter Parker gets bit by a spider and Thor is born into immense power. But there is no end to which either chooses to advance their values in the world around them. They decide what is good and what is evil, and fight for what they believe and for how they want to shape existence. Such gives them meaning, the search of which is a major theme in the MCU. Thor doesn't just settle down as king of New Asgard at the end of Endgame when he gets the chance. He bypasses the opportunity to reign over a great kingdom, because he ain't about that life. His search for meaning continues. This is precisely why Thor's mother tells him, quote, "Everyone fails at who they're supposed to be, Thor. A measure of a person, of a hero, is how well they succeed at being who they are. Make mistakes, fail, but be yourself. Make choices for yourself based on your values." It's a simple message in the movie. Okay, I digress. New Asgard is a crappy fishing village, but you get the point. There is complete free will in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A free will that requires one to bear the cosmic consequences of choice. Do the Avengers live with the decimation? The world is fine now after all. Thanos is done. Or do they try to do more? Bring people back? Reverse the decimation? They steer the destiny of the world with their decision. There is no necessary choice, no obvious moral answer as to what to do. The complexities of morality is a major theme in the MCU itself and plays right into the guiding philosophy of the MCU that the world is left in our hands and we have to do something with it. The inhabitants of existence, those both good and evil, according to whatever our definitions of those two labels are, must both face the same task of defining what is moral and choosing what to do with this world given to us. Think about it, there are few entities in the MCU that are evil just for the sake of evil. Caecilius, Ultron, Ego, Killmonger, and Thanos. All of these beings are complicated, all have arguments as to why their goals are just, all reason for the morality of their ways. It's never just chaos, as dictates the way of, say, the Joker. And all these beings must decide what they want to make of existence. Everyone plays by the same rules. This message is literally spoon-fed to audiences as both Thanos and the Avengers must make the same level of sacrifice on Vormir to get what they seek, the Soul Stone. Life, again, is brutal. It has some difficult facts to accept, some harsh rules, and one of those rules is death. But it's sacrifice and the impermanence of love that are themes in the MCU, and that relate to our overarching philosophy as stated by Cap. Just like Thanos and Black Widow made a choice on Vormir, Tony makes a choice in Endgame to sacrifice his happiness with his family in order to reverse Thanos' decimation. He gives his life for a cause that isn't guaranteed to be the right one even. Who knows if it is truly right to play with time rather than leave Thanos' deeds as is? But Tony makes a choice, just as we all have to do, about what he believes to be right and does it, sacrificing himself in the process. That is what a hero does. There's no clear right and wrong in Captain America: Civil War. Both Cap and Tony make choices that even pit the Avengers versus each other. Everyone has to make a decision. So are the Avengers even the good in the MCU? Well, I believe yes, because their ideals relate most closely to common human morality. Without getting into the efficacy of such proposals, ingrained in the human philosophy are cultural taboos against eliminating mass amounts of humans in order to save resources or preserve the Earth. Don't get me wrong, I am not arguing that there is a moral equivalency between the Avengers and their foes dependent upon perspective. I'm not saying that Dormammu is a freedom fighter. I'm simply asking that you think deeper about the motivations of all parties involved in the MCU and how it relates to the universal philosophy of the MCU reality. Every being in this reality is left with the same challenge to figure out what to do with their existence. Thanos chooses to eliminate half the population of reality in order to, as he believes will be the result, save resources. The Avengers, on the other hand, choose to protect as much life as possible at all costs. More specifically, they seek to preserve Western norms of freedom. And one can even make the argument that they fight for the norms of Western democracy as well. Though this isn't such a radical proposition if one considers the genesis of Marvel Comics and the foundations of many of the characters therein. And it's no surprise that in the struggle to do what is right, mistakes are made along the way. Mistakes that create new fights and new battles. These happenings don't offer us a nice and pretty dividing line between good and evil. They're simply what happens when the Earth is left to humans, the galaxy left to a grumpy raccoon to figure out, to do something with. And that's the message of it all. And how does that come back to us? Well, the world is left to us, and we have to do something with it. Define it, figure out what we believe is right, and fight for it. And as I mentioned, life is often going to be brutal along the way. There's not always a perfect ending. After all, part of the journey is the end. Happiness is found in small moments that take place in the course of the larger journey. And we don't always end up with the one we want in trying to figure it out. But sometimes we do. Well, that's the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, if you did enjoy the video, please remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell. It makes us feel happy deep inside. For now, my name is American Ben, and I'll catch you next time. Generation Films, peace.